Every company, every business needs sales in order to generate income. So I think at the end of the day, if you want to make money, this is one of the easiest skills to learn. And it does take time and experience, but at the end of the day, all you're using is your voice.
What's going on, millionaires? You're tapped into another episode of the $1 Million Mind Podcast. I'm your guy, Kai Speaks. And y'all in for a treat, man. Y'all are in for a real good treat. You know, you are in the right place if you are here looking for money-making tips just on monetizing, mindset, entrepreneurship, all of this combined into one platform that we call the $1 Million Mind Podcast. And we got a very special guest for y'all today. We got my boy, Pat Khim in the building, sales coach, sales expert, the guy who's going to give y'all all the sauce. And I'm going to just go ahead and throw the camera on him, man. Pat, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, for real.
I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. So tell our listeners a little bit more about your journey, like how you got into sales, what you were doing before, and kind of what that transition looked like for you.
Yeah. So I've always been a salesperson. I feel like in this world, you know, we're always getting sold everything that we have, everything that we watch, and just in general, we're always getting sold. So, you know, that's one of the main skills that I wanted to learn just growing up. So when I was in middle school, I actually sold shoes. I sold shoes for over 10 years. And then I, you know, worked jobs throughout time. And I was like a sales associate. I was a sales rep at all these different companies. And then one thing that really took off for me was remote high ticket sales, where everything was online. I was working with digital course creators, people that own digital products, and being able to sell their products and make a commission from it. Because one thing about, you know, remote high ticket sales is that you're selling these huge packages and you're getting paid a good commission from literally being anywhere in the world, because you don't have to clock in anywhere. You're literally just on Zoom getting inbound leads and closing them from there without creating a product or ever showing your face.
That's big. And one thing I love that you mentioned was, you know, how it kind of like indirectly started from you selling shoes in middle school. Like, what kind of shoes were you selling? Middle school, I mean.
Yeah. So middle school, I got my first pair of Jordans.
Okay.
And then.
But you wore them like once, and it was like, hey, I'm gonna flip these.
Yeah. So I actually got them as a gift.
Okay.
And I was wearing them, and I was like, you know what? These are kind of too big on me. And I was like, you know what? My uncle told me, you know, you can make money from selling shoes. And he showed me eBay. He showed me these Facebook group chats.
In middle school.
In middle school.
Got you.
And, you know, I ended up selling them after they were worn. And I was like, you know, even though they were a gift, but it was just like, you know, let me get something else that I wanted. But the fact that I was able to wear them and sell them, it changed the whole game for me. Because I realized, look, there's a market for used shoes and there's a market for new shoes. So really how I got into the game was I just started studying and doing more research while being in middle school. And I used to go do raffles all the time. I used to camp out in Atlanta and really just like learn the game. And, you know, that was one of my favorite, like, just, I was passionate about it at a time. Because I was making more money from that than any other job. Yeah. Obviously, it required work still. It obviously required me to come out to Atlanta from Gwinnett, but it was the risk I was willing to take.
Right.
So, yeah, I ended up doing that for 10 years. Been able to sell, like, shoes from Yeezys, Off-Whites, Jordans. I used to get backdoored from a lot of these stores in Atlanta, and just build a credible, like, shoe selling, I guess, company, like small company.
Yeah. But you was able to do it without a brick and mortar. You was able to do it, you know, without having to spend a whole lot of money in bulk, you know, getting these shoes. So it sounded like a pretty profitable business model. Yeah. You know, and not to focus on that too much, but what you said was how you were able to wear the shoes and still sell them, which made like change the game for you. And we're starting to see, like, in this day and age, this is like a model that's trending and making a lot of people money, whether it's, you know, driving a car and still being able to profit off of it, whether it's living in an apartment or a duplex and still being able to profit off of it. You have all these different, you know, things that used to be considered liabilities, now people are able to turn them into assets.
Correct.
So for you, understanding that and just understanding that you took, even going back to middle school, how other people may not have been selling shoes, but we were selling them candy bars. We were selling them little pizza packets to get, to go on a class trip. Naturally, we're always selling something. And if you're not selling a product, you're selling yourself for a job interview, making new friends, everything. So if you could, just based on the 10 years plus of what you've, experienced, why is how dynamic is sales? Why should people learn sales as a skill, even if they don't want to call themselves a salesperson?
Yeah. I mean, I think sales in general has a negative look on it because people hate running into sales people. But you got to understand, at the end of the day, we're always being sold something. Yeah. So it's either you sell something or you get sold and be the consumer. And at the end of the day, there's always going to be more consumers than people that producers. And I think one thing that's huge in this whole market of just sales in general, every company, every business needs sales in order to generate income. So I think at the end of the day, if you want to make money, this is one of the easiest skills to learn. And it does take time and experience, but at the end of the day, all you're using is your voice.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I took away from my 10 years of experience is that, I was either going to be someone that buys something off of people, or I'm going to be the person that sells something.
And, you mentioned it takes time, it takes skill, but is this a skill set that everyone can, with work, learn?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like at the end of the day, you sell literally yourself. You know what I mean? When you go talk to girls, you're basically, macking on them and just selling yourself and how the way you look, the way you talk, you know what I mean? Your personality, the way you, when you go buy food, you're getting sold all the time on just different things, on what to eat throughout the day. When you go to these gyms, right? Which gym should I go to? You're getting sold. Yeah. So you got to look at it from a different perspective of how can I create something, or how can I sell something to make money? And that's the biggest key. And I feel like in general is that you have people that want to be the best marketers, but you got to also be able to learn how to sell what you want to, that you created.
That's facts. And fellas, if you heard that beginning part, if you ain't got no riz, then maybe that's time for you to get into some sales, learn some sales skills, right? To get your riz up. But so this is I would consider this a platform where a lot of 9-to-5ers spend a lot of time, delving into the information, trying to get untrapped, trying to get out of that rat race. For our 9-to-5ers that are tapping in, who are aspiring business owners, how can they leverage a high income skill like high ticket sales?
Yeah. So if you're working a 9-to-5 right now and you're saying, hey, look, I spend 40 hours a week and I'm making probably $500 to $1,000, if you get into remote high ticket sales, you're not starting your own business. And a lot of people don't talk about the insides of starting your own business, meaning the upfront capital that people may need, the market, and the competition that you have inside of the market. I would also say hiring a team, having people on payroll. People don't talk about that. So before you even think about starting a business, make sure you have all that aligned. But I always tell people the reason why I got into high ticket sales is because I didn't want the responsibilities of a business owner. Because it requires a lot and you got to be on top of everybody, and people are dependent on you to get paid. So in remote high ticket sales, you're basically working with a credible business owner that's spending thousands of dollars in marketing, and they're basically paying you to close their deals, and you don't have to do any outbound calls at all. It's all inbound, and you're just selling them digital products that you didn't have to create. It's what your business owner created. Right. And this is someone that's credible. This is someone that's built their authority. And all you're doing is being a part of their team and making commissions off of what you sell.
So what does that look like for a time management perspective? Someone who is working Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 8 to 5, whatever that might look like. like how were they able to get into this and truly maximize on their time?
Yeah. So I'll kind of give you guys like a background of like when I first started in remote high ticket sales. So it's been a year now. But when I first got started into this space, I wanted to figure out, does this actually work?
Yeah.
And obviously, when you start something, you don't want to put in all your time into it, especially if it doesn't work, because now you're looking at it like, you know, I could have put my time somewhere else. So when I first started closing, I worked with a client, my first client. His name is Will Rivera, Will Change Lives.
Yep.
And he sells an Amazon product or an Amazon, information product. So when I first started with him, I was only working 9 hours a week. And my first month of working 9 hours a week, I was still able to close 8 deals and make $7,000 in commission. So from that standpoint alone, it made sense for me to go all in, because I was like, if I was able to spend 9 hours a week, get this many leads, close this many people, and make $7,000, what if I just opened up my schedule?
Right.
And for anyone that works a job currently, I always recommend, like, there's a lot of these business owners and companies that will hire you just for part-time. Sometimes they even let you put your own schedule in. So you have to have it make sense, meaning if you're gonna spend 9 hours at your job and make X amount, and you spend 9 hours here in remote high ticket sales, you gotta look at the outcome of both. Which one makes more sense and which one is a minimum wage activity? Because if I made $7,000 over here spending 9 hours a week and I only made $3,000 over here, I gotta sacrifice one of them and go all in with one and focus on one thing.
Now that's hard for a lot of people too, because then, you know, we go into that fear of security, right? And let's unpack this, because I have my own thoughts on security. You know, just the word right there does create a false sense of security, because, you know, there's no real security in, you know, sustaining a $3,000 a month, you know, paycheck.
Yeah.
When you can be making $7,000 a week or $7,000 a month, you know, or $10,000 one month or $20,000 another month, but then back to $3,000, $5,000 the next month.
Yeah.
So that inconsistency that most people looks insecure.
Yeah.
What are some mindset hacks or some advice you would give to somebody that might be on your team that is dealing with those inconsistent paychecks, that $3,000 month to that $15,000 month? Yeah.
At the end of the day, you gotta understand what your goals are. You gotta understand what you're doing this for. And if you're doing this for, I would say in general, like,
let's say extra income to invest in another hustle, another business, or just to create a savings.
Yeah, I would say in general, this is how I operate. And I've always operated like this. I'm willing to take the risk if that means, you know, if I do make less and I end up making more, right? If 1 month I have a really good month and 1 month I end up having a bad month, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, I'm working towards my dreams and my passions rather than for someone else's. So I think in general, like, if you have a family, it makes sense. If you have a lot of responsibilities, you have, you know, constant bills, like, you know, keep your job, but find something that you could put money into that's gonna start helping you build something.
Right. Basically, get the fuck off of Netflix.
I feel like you just got to prioritize what you're doing with what you have, right? So for me, like, I don't have kids. I don't have a partner. I don't have any of that. So for me, it was like, I'm putting it all on me, and it has to work regardless, because everything is dependent on me. So that's always been my mindset, is just like, I'd rather chase my dreams, because you only... you know, you get one chance at this. Yeah. And I'd rather pursue my passions, my purpose, and go after everything I told myself I was going to do, rather than just settle. Yeah.
That's good advice. And I appreciate that transparency too, because like, everybody is going to be in a different stage. Like, not everyone is in the same position, in the same stage of life. Like for the people who are like Pat, right? Like if you don't have to worry about like an entire family to feed, you don't have, you know, excessive amounts of bills. Like some people get into the game late, you know, already, you know, realizing that they spent 10, 15 years at a job with a whole wife or a husband, you know, some kids, you know, a whole house that has bills, maybe even taking care of their parents and stuff like that. Like if you are at that stage, then like you said, it does make sense to keep your job. And I actually, you know, would advocate for that myself as a entrepreneur who is still even working a job and working, you know, a business on the side. Like it can work, but what I think is the biggest difference is, you know, it's really hard to do it when you're working a job that you hate. But when you have that intention, like you said, of doing what you love, you know, following your purpose, you know, following that passion, and you happen to be blessed enough to have a job in that passion and that purpose, then it's easy to come home and be like, okay, now it's time to get to this bag. But when you work in a job where everybody you hate, you know, is working in that environment, you don't like the job, you don't like the pay, you don't like the environment, you don't like the commute, everything you don't like. When you come home, you drain from just not liking
dealing
shit.
with everybody.
Exactly. So,
but I think that's another thing too, like kind of going off of that last thing is just like, if you're at a place that you hate, it's time that should motivate you enough to be like, hey, look, I can't be here longer, or how long can I take this? And you got to start making moves to adapt, so that way you don't have to be in that situation anymore.
So what would that transition look like? Like how soon can someone get partnered with an offer? How soon can they start making sales? How soon can they start getting to the bag?
Yeah, so the first thing when you come into remote high ticket sales is understanding just basically how sales works in general, how to talk to people, how to listen to people. I feel like with remote high ticket sales, it's different from any other sales job because, you know, door-to-door sales, you got to go knock on doors, you got to, 60-second time frame to really keep that attention of the person
before they door close.
Yeah, exactly. You have network marketing, which is you're signing people up and they're like under you and things like that, and you're dependent on other people to close those deals for you to make money. You also have car sales where you're selling these, you know, $30,000, $50,000 products and only making like $500.
Ooh, I was about to say, because you would think car sales is the closest thing to high ticket sales.
Yeah, you would think.
You would think.
But with remote high ticket sales, all you're doing is working with inbound leads. You're not going to find, like, I know in general, like, it's kind of off topic, but wholesaling, like some people have to cold call, right? And in high ticket sales, all you're doing is working with inbound leads, and you get to close them on just knowing the product that you're selling. So the time span of you finding a client really depends on the work that you're willing to put in to get closer to closing a deal, right? So without a deal, like without a client, you can't make money in this space. So what you got to do first is really outreach to all these different people that run ads that you see on your Instagram, your Twitter feed, these YouTube ads, and let them know that you're interested in closing their deals for them and you're willing to scale their business. That's the first part. The second part is you'll get a response from them and you'll schedule an interview. Once you get on the interview, they're going to ask you questions about your sales experience, or they're going to ask you about just experience in general with leadership, because they're bringing someone onto the team.
Yeah. So of course it's going to be interviews.
Exactly. So after you get through the interview, now it's time to study the offer. Like, congratulations, but there's still more. Understand the offer, know what you're selling, be the expert in that field, because these leads are coming to you like you're the person that's an advisor or a coach or a student inside of the business, and now you're selling people. So that, I mean, I've seen people do it within 48 hours of that time span of getting a client to getting leads. It just really depends on how much work you're willing to put on the outreach to get a client and get a response to go on an interview, and you know what you're willing to bring to the table. And then after that, it's all performance based. It's not a salary. You get paid 10 to 30, I would say 10 to 20% commissions based off of what you close, but you're closing $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 packages, and it's all inbound leads. So all the leads are coming to you, and you just gotta present yourself.
You just gotta close.
Exactly.
So going back again to It's commission based. It's no salary. I feel like as a society, we have created lazy people with a salary. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not appreciative of, positions that have a salary.
Right.
Because some positions have to have a salary for it to make, because not every position even puts people in the opportunity to make uncapped income. Right. But that's the beauty of having a commission based opportunity, is that it's uncapped. Is that you honestly get to eat what you kill. Like you get to set your own salary. And if you work on those key performance indicators and really measuring your activities, like you can create that salary. You can duplicate the same results and make sure that you're making $20K a month every single month. So like for some of your closers and for yourself, like what are some like what are some like measurable activities or tasks that allow you to at least see like the consistency in your pay?
Okay, yeah. So kind of going back off of what you said first is the salaries kind of make, some people lazy or comfortable. When you're getting into high ticket sales, you got to change that mindset right there and then.
Yeah.
If you want to get into it, you're interested in it, this is not something for lazy people in general. Like we always talk about it with me and my friends, is like you got to really have that dog in you. Because at the end of the day, you're waking up and you got to take calls, or however your schedule runs. And you got to understand that you start at zero every single day. Every day. So one thing that, what I do usually within a day-to-day and remote high ticket sales is that I'll wake up, I'll, text my leads. Well, I'll wake up, go to the gym, text my leads, and make sure that they're going to show up on the calls. I take 5 to 6 calls a day. And the reason why I take 5 to 6 calls is because after 6 calls, you're kind of burnt out of just talking to, some of these customers or these new leads that are telling you about their problems.
You do take on some of those problems too sometimes.
And then after that, it's just like I go back to my day-to-day life, right? Handle everything I got to do. But I realized that, it becomes consistent when you start getting more reps in, because now you figure out your script, you figure out what you need to hear with the pain points on the calls, and now all it is a numbers game at this point. So it got to the point where, I was closing like a 50% conversion throughout, day to day. And it was just like, we're getting paid every single time we get on a call, or I know this person's not going to close. Right? Because it's just repetitive stuff. And you got to also think, like, most of these people have the same problems. After you go through 200 calls, that's how many calls I went through in my first month. After I went through 200 calls, I reviewed everything that I was doing wrong and took it as a lesson. Hey, I'm maybe asking too many questions here. Why are my calls an hour long? There's something I need to hold back on. I need to let the customer speak more. I need to transition to the offer more, because they're telling me everything that they need. Our offer works out for them, but I'm being scared to sell them on it. And at the end of the day, the things that you're selling in remote high ticket sales, you're not really selling someone something. You're giving them an opportunity, because you're showing them that if you invest into this money, and usually the programs that you work with, if you trust it enough and you see the testimonials with that client, you should be confident in what you're presenting to that lead. If you're not confident in the product that you're selling in remote high ticket sales, you need to move to a different offer. And I believe that because you can't sell something that you're not willing to buy.
Right.
So every time I take a call or I sell something, it's because I genuinely want to help this person. I'm not trying to put you in a worse situation, because now you're spending $5,000-$10,000. That's not,
and that looks bad on me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
it's not just small money to a lot of these people that come into these programs, because it's B2C. So you got to understand that, I'm putting you in a better position, and this is why you need it after everything you told me. And let's make a decision now.
You said something that I want to touch on a little bit more, was like why your calls might be going an hour, and that could be because you're talking too much and not listening enough.
Right.
How important is the skill of listening to a sales rep?
It's the most important skill, because you got to carry out the whole conversation and you got to be able to pick back up on the things that they told you. Like the first question I always ask people when it comes to my sales calls is, why'd you choose this business out of everything? Everything else? They'll tell me all their pain points, right? It's asking quality questions. It's like, I chose this because I wanted to do this. Okay, the next question I have for you is, who are you doing this for? Is it for yourself? Do you have family? So instead of asking like, you know, are you doing this for your kids? Like, are you trying to build something? It's like, who are you doing this for?
Yeah,
then
it's more open-ended.
Yes, yeah, I always love to ask those type of questions because they're giving me more by just asking one simple question. So when I used to start like closing, I was asking all the little questions. So now I packed everything up into questions that made them want to open up more, and it's more conversation driven.
Yeah. What do you do for the person that does take those, you know, no matter how good, because those are some great, strong, open-ended questions too. But despite how good they are, what do you do with the person that is still not giving you much? They like very, very closed off, very guarded, sometimes even very brief to where they seem uninterested.
Right.
Do you still pursue that person? How do you identify if they're even further qualified?
Yeah, so I like to go more in depth and actually understand the person, because at the end of the day, this person booked the call.
Yeah.
You took the time out to answer all the questions, wait till the call, show up to the call. There's a reason why you're here. I need to figure out why you're here. If you're unqualified, I believe in general, like if someone books a call with me and they show up to the call, they're considered a lead in general. Like, I hate the term like, yeah, people are unqualified, qualified. You'd never know how much money that person has until they pull out their card.
Right.
That's the one thing. So I feel like in general, like a lot of people in this space, they always talk about, hey, we have unqualified leads. Hey, we don't have the, you know, the right leads in our business. Really, it might be the offer itself. Maybe it's something that they don't even want. Or it could be that you're not even listening to this actual person. You're just trying to make a sale. So they could see it as two different things. Like I said before, is like sales has a negative look on it. You can't seem like the salesperson on these remote high-ticket sales calls. You have to be an advisor. And you got to point them from the direction of where they're at and where they want to be.
Yeah.
And if your offer presents that and it's something that matches up with every pain point that they have, then you have an irresistible offer and an irresistible script.
Yeah. And it's like that reminds me so much. Like when I first moved to Atlanta, I moved here on an opportunity to start sales. And when I started to get the most out of that experience and started to really see the most success is when we had a new client come in, and the client, in the midst of trying to get us to perform better, was trying to help us change our mindset on how we approach the customer. And the word he used was consultative sales. And I really liked that because the way he broke it down was like you said, is like, you're not looking to be this salesperson. You looking to really be like their 5-minute best friend. In this case, maybe like a 30 to 45 minute best friend. Like you trying to like hear their problems. You trying to really like help them understand and feel that you hear their problems, and then deliver with them what you feel might be the best opportunity or situation for them based on what they communicated. Yeah. So, man, that's a lot to unpack.
I would say this too, like I look at remote high ticket sales and what you're doing with these business owners way different from a lot of the other sales jobs, because this person is coming to you. That's one. Two, you're not looked at as a salesperson in the first place. So when you give out that look of being a salesperson, they're already turned off by it. So you got to really be, my favorite analogy when I talk about just high ticket sales and like how, we take sales calls, is like being a doctor. Yeah. When a customer comes in or a patient comes in, they tell you all their problems. You listen to them, and you go to the computer, you look up, what prescription they need. You tell them the prescription. This is what's going to benefit them and how it's going to help them. And then they pay you back. So you got to be the doctor or the therapist and be willing to be a listener, and not only that, someone that's going to be able to prescribe them something or solve their problems within that 30-minute, 45-minute time span.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because and I could really second what Pat is saying, y'all. Like as far as like what stands out and what makes the high ticket closers really different from any other sales rep, because I did them all, bro. I did the network marketing.
I did all of them too.
I did the door to door, the B2C, B2B, the retail in the Walmarts and all that stuff. Like you name it, I probably did them all except car sales, right?
Yeah, same.
But even with all of them, I noticed that my mindset was, it was more so the better person to handle the objection wins. Right? How can you handle the objection? And handling objections is not always listening. Yeah. So it's more so just having some clever or something slick to say back to make them eat their words. Yeah, it's a finesse, right? But, now that I'm even in high ticket sales, I'm noticing like handling objections really is how good can you listen and how good can you repeat what they said. What the problem is, they communicate and just ask them another question, follow it up. So, man, that's interesting. Taking a step back, because you mentioned you had mentioned a question that was, or you made a statement that was pretty frank, and I wanted to ask you, like, is it okay to be frank? Are there moments where you should or could be frank with a client? Like I see, the sales guys on YouTube. Some of them be very frank. I'm not sure if he's Korean or what, but it's a guy, bro. He's super trendy on YouTube, and things he says is like frank as fuck. like
example,
going right to like kind of how you said, like, you booked this call, you tell me why you're here. Like, what do you feel about that approach when it comes to this type of sales?
It works. I feel like in general, I feel like everybody sells their own specific way. Yeah. Like me and you probably sell a lot different on the phone.
Probably so.
It just depends on what works for you best. I'm not saying my method is the best method, but it's definitely generated a lot of money. And that's the way I like to teach it, because why would I teach something that I don't do? Another thing too is like, there are people that sell like that, and they're top performers as well. So it just really depends on your audience though. I feel like if you're coming off that way with an inbound lead, it could look like, you're just trying to make money rather than help them, right? So I never want to give my lead that look of just like, hey, I'm here to make money off of you.
Yeah, I'm trying to just close you and get off the phone.
Yeah, like I'm trying to help you, close you, and you're in a new opportunity. And I've also heard that from new leads that turn into customers. They would be like, do you make money from this call? And I'd be like, no, but I was trying to help you. I don't need you to know that. I'm just here to advise you because I was the top student. I was one of the top coaches inside of this program, and I've gotten amazing results. And I think at that point, they look at me as like someone that's going to help them, because at the end of the day, after you take these sales calls, right, in remote high ticket sales, you brought someone into an opportunity. I always like to make sure the person I brought into the business is performing or doing okay or doing well with the opportunity.
Right.
Because that person might be on a payment plan. If they don't,
you want to make sure
I want to make sure I get my full commission. But I also want to see, hey, I could bring this person in my next sales call. This person came in saying this, they told me this, and they still joined. And these are the results that happen from all of that.
That's some game right there. I think that went over a lot of people's head, because you pretty much nurture them to be a testimony, to be a and at
that point, it's like no one could tell you anything wrong about what you're doing, because if I say that person got amazing results and this new lead comes in with the same problems, I could just bring up this person. Maybe in general, I could even pull up their testimonials. Or I could even have them come on the phone call just to give a quick testimonial if I wanted to. But it just helps out with everything that I'm building, which is my script, the way I close. You should always take care of your customers that come in, because at the end of the day, your client is going to with his whole team and everything like that. But some of these people come in on payment plans, and a lot of people, they don't pay their second, their third month. And you need all the money you get. Yeah. So make sure that they're fully completed throughout the whole process. Make sure they're getting results to pay off the rest of their payment plan. And then from there, you're all good to go. Yeah. New lead. Yeah. New testimonial, really.
And on top of that, it's good to it's always better to have a customer paying full. But, even when you do get that commission from that first payment, you kind of forget about them, right? And so it's still nice to even have like an unexpected extra $500 or $1,000 come through this month and then the next month that you didn't have to work for.
That's how I scaled.
Yeah.
So one thing I realized is like, okay, a lot of people don't really have $8,500 with the offer that I was selling. So they weren't paying it full. So one thing I realized is like, I brought this up to Will and I was like, you know what, my first deal I closed was a paid in full. I was lit. It was a $5,000 deal. We were getting paid 20%. So I made $1,000. Changed the game for me. But over time, I was like going through all these leads and I wasn't closing. And then one thing I realized is like, yo, these people can't really afford it or I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So I was like, Will, why don't we just create payment plans? Like, what's your overhead for this program in general? And what's your overhead? Because at the end of the day, you already sold them on the front end. We're selling them on the back end to, make more off of the customer, but also put them in a better opportunity. So we started taking payment plans. And it would just stack. And it got to the point, and that's why my closing ratio went up, my conversion went up, because I was putting people on payment plans, but they were really setting me up for the next month and the month after that. And new leads were coming in. Now it was like, okay, if I could close this many deals, I know I'm gonna get paid the same thing next month. And it started becoming like something that was active to something that was passive.
Right. It's kind of like you structured it off of the payment plan, right? So damn, that's crazy. So
because at the end of the day, a lot of people in this business, they always want to sell something that's, 10, 15, 25,000. Like, and I'm talking about the coaches and consultants. They want to sell something that's a huge package and put all these different things in it to make it look good, right? But they also got to understand, you got to meet your
people
customer.
Where they at?
Yeah, you got to meet your customer. So if you're trying to sell this package and you're bringing these type of customers in, it doesn't make sense. So if you could find some way to survey your customers, your audience that you're bringing in through your ads, your content, anything like that, create an offer that works with them and it'll become something that's irresistible. The offer that we did with Will, we started last year. And at first we were trying to sell it and we called it like a 90-day program, a 30-day program. You have two options to choose. And at first, like, it did okay. It brought like $30,000 a month extra. And then we started making changes based off of what we were hearing on the sales calls. We brought it up to Will. We changed the offers, and he's been running with the same offer ever since and made over $5 million with it.
Wow, just making those changes.
Just listening to the customer.
Taking the call. So let's talk about that too. As a sales rep, you showed that you talked about the benefit of reviewing this with the client, but as a sales rep, how beneficial is it, for you to also listen back to your old calls?
You have to
review that film.
You have to. I mean, that's how athletes get better at what they do, right? And I think in sales in general, the way you get better is not doing the same things that you're doing currently, is looking back and reviewing, because you're the person that's on the phone. So you got to review everything that you're doing, what worked, what didn't work, what do you need to adjust, and also report back what you're hearing, because you might be the first point or last point of contact for this customer. So everything that you're hearing and you can't close it, you got to report that to your client, because you guys want to create something that's irresistible before it leads to more calls that look the same. So that was something huge for me. I was like, yo, I'm taking 200 calls this month and I only closed 8 of them. Like, nah, I'm not terrible at sales. Like, that's what I told Will. I was like, yo, just give me one more month. But I also told him everything that was going wrong with the calls and what people actually wanted. It's not what we thought was going to be great. We actually revamped the whole thing. We were going off of what the customers actually wanted and needed. And that changed everything. We went from a $40,000 like profit on the back end with that offer to the next month we did like $200K, just changing it.
Interesting.
So I believe in general, if you're creating something, you're selling something, go off of your audience and then value stack it.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's something irresistible where you meet all their needs and their wants. And after you've gone through so many calls, you know exactly, like, everyone has the same problems. they're looking for this. They're looking for this. And always give the outcome rather than what's involved in it. Because people want to hear results, especially in this game of just online space in general. They want to know what exactly they're getting because there's a lot of coaches out here. They're looking for top-notch stuff that's going to give them the best results. Mm-hmm. So we actually changed that 30-day program and that 90-day program into something where we help you until you get to 10K a month. We help you until you get to 20K a month.
Yeah, that's value.
So now the customer is like, this is a no-brainer.
Because now it looks like I'm investing this to get that.
Exactly.
Instead of I'm investing this to maybe get this in 30 to 90 days.
Exactly, because that's what a customer or a lead asked me in the first month is like, what if I can't show up to all 30 days? What if I go on vacation?
Yeah.
What if I can't show up to the coaching calls? Did it get recorded? Like, after the 30 days, like, what if I don't make anything? So now we're giving you the outcome, and they're buying all day long, and they're getting the results. So I think it's just irresistible. You have to create something that's irresistible and also something that's going to give them the outcome. Because at that point, what can they say? What can they say?
Yeah, that's what you said right there though, Pat, is a huge mindset shift that I feel like people can't afford to overlook. Right, like just having the understanding and the patience to look back at your old, not just even looking back at your old calls, but looking at them, picking them apart, dissecting it, and then taking it to the client to say like, hey, this is what I'm getting. These are some potential changes that we can make. That's the difference between having an entrepreneurial mind versus having an employed mind, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for the people who really want this to work for them, it sounds like you have to have, even still, an entrepreneurial mind. You can't approach this as an employee, because then you're just going to go into doing the bare minimum of getting on my calls. They didn't work out.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Let me take my next calls the next day.
Yeah.
So with that mindset shift, and then also earlier on you mentioned waking up and starting at zero, waking up and taking calls, especially after the day before, you might have heard nothing but no's.
Yeah.
Right. So what are some of the mindset hacks and, advice you can give to people who are starting this, never been in the sales before, that need to prepare their minds for this type of environment?
Yeah. I mean, in general, you have to realize, like, back to what I was saying is like, you're starting at zero every single day. You might have people on payment plans, but at the end of the day, some people don't go through with them. So you got to understand that, like, you have to, it depends on what your goals are, I feel like, in general. Like, this is something where you come into the game and you're not guaranteed money. And that's being completely transparent. But if you come into this game and you actually perform, you can make a lot of money. So, it just depends. And I think when you start closing deals, you get this, like, feeling of like, dang, I could close everything. Or you just have a great, like, you just look forward to your next call. That's how it was for me. Like, I was like working 9 hours, and I was like, yo, Will, I'm opening the calendar. I'm opening up my schedule because this is fun. Like, we're putting people in position. That's what I love to do. And I get to talk to people. I love talking to people. Because at first I was an appointment setter. And I was like, Will, this is not fun. I'm just texting people. Like, but now I get to, like, present who I am and also put you in position. So, I was able to go from, that $7,000 a month to my biggest month in commissions was $30,000. And that's just all from taking calls. And at the end of the day, like, all the money that you're making inside of this space is all yours. You don't put any money back into the business. All you're doing is taking more sales calls. And getting better. And sometimes you get even to that position where you're a sales manager where you don't even take calls anymore. You're just training closers. But the mindset that you got to have at the end of the day is, like, realizing that, there's a lot of money to be made is really if you want it. Like, there's a lot of opportunities that you could get anywhere, on this world. But I believe in general, like, one of the best skills to learn in general is sales, but which vehicle are you going to go with? Yeah. And for me, it was remote high ticket sales.
Yeah. Because it's abundance. The opportunity is abundance, because abundance is your birthright, man. Shout out to Ash Cash for always saying that and reminding us of that point. Earlier, before we even started the conversation, Pat, you mentioned, one thing you like to focus on is focusing on the things that you're good at.
Yeah.
Like the things that you're not good at, you like try to outsource and maybe not even put any focus into it at all. Talk to our listeners about the benefit of that and different ways that people can leverage what they're good at and kind of X out the things that they're not good at.
Yeah, so I'll relate it to high ticket sales first and how I was doing it with my sales calls. And then I also relate it to just in general.
Got you.
So when I was closing for Will, I realized there was a lot of people that I didn't close at the beginning. So I went out the way and hired my own VA to hit up all my leads and rebook them for another call, like a follow-up call, and downsell them on the package. So for me, it was just like, I'm always getting new leads every single day, but there's also people that were interested but couldn't afford when I first talked to them.
Yeah.
And my script got better. And I've gone through so many reps where I know, like, okay, I know where I messed up with this person.
Right.
So, and our offer changed a lot. So I had a VA that would export all my leads, get rid of all the people that I sold to, send them an SMS blast, rebook them to a new calendar. That was a follow-up call for me. So everyone that rebooked it, it costed me probably the VA is probably $5 an hour. SMS was probably like $15. I saw it as a standpoint of like, okay, this is me investing my money because I don't have to pay for anything. I'm just getting leads all the time. I put $15 in to get 15 new book calls. And one call, if I close it, I'm making $1,000 at most.
Yeah.
Or $1,000 if it's a paid.
And the virtual assistant, is this somebody you paying full time or was it project based?
It was full time.
Got you.
Because I knew I was going through so many leads every single day, and I knew what my conversion was. So I was like, hey, I'll say it's part time because I only had them do it every 2 weeks.
So like they'll work a full week, but then the next week they'll have off.
Yeah.
Got you.
And then we'll just clean up the list, and it was just additional income from doing that. In life in general, though, I believe that you got to figure out what you're good at in anything that you do, and realize that at the end of the day, you can't be great at everything because you're putting too much energy here, and here. You're not giving something you're 100%. That's what happened when, like, throughout my whole 10 years of entrepreneurship was like I was listening to what everybody else was doing. And I was trying to do wholesaling. I was trying to do network marketing. I was trying to resell shoes. I was trying to, trade stocks.
Whole lot of stuff at once.
A whole lot of stuff. And I wasn't seeing the results because I was making 1,000 here, 500 here, when one thing alone can make you 7 figures. So when I came into remote high ticket sales, I sacrificed everything that I was doing. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna become the greatest at what I do. And that's why I was able to scale from 9,000 or is that 7,000 to 30,000 a month consistently. And not only that, within my business alone, like I had to figure out like, you know what, I can't do everything, and have certain people in place in order for me to be great at what I do. You know what I mean? Which is like the talent, the person that markets and things like that.
Yeah. That's big, man. And so for our listeners who are having a hard time, with that same problem, like trying to do all of these different things at once, because first of all, that game you said about the VA, man, I'm thinking about doing that my damn self. That's brilliant. Like just having a VA just go through and clean up your leads for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's only if like the client doesn't have like a follow-up team and stuff like that. At the time we didn't. So it was just like, hey, you know what? Let me just actually use my commissions on reinvesting into the business, because I don't reinvest at all into the business. Right. I'm just getting leads.
And you are the business
exactly.
as a high ticket closer. Like
exactly.
You are the business, so invest into yourself. What are some other ways that you've invested into yourself outside of the VA, like whether it was like education or just peace of mind? Yeah,
so I've spent, I would say, a couple 5 figures on just learning from just mentors or going to events. I realized that the key to this whole game of just leveling up is learning from people that have the results that you don't have. So I started going to events. I started going to, joining mentorship programs, just really just finding ways to level up my knowledge. And that helps in general, because if you could take the time to spend money on something that's going to help you, you're going to look at it at the point where you don't have to waste so much time. Because at the end of the day, time is more valuable. Money comes and goes.
Yeah.
Time doesn't. So you got to look at it as, if I'm willing to spend $5,000 to learn information that could make me 6 figures, or someone that is making 6 figures a month, is it worth it?
That sounds worth it to me. Right.
Exactly. So I'd rather take the risk on spending the money and hearing every obstacle they went through, rather than me going through everything that they went through to get to that point. Because
and not even know about it, right? Not even know about the obstacle in the first place.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, it's going to end up costing me more.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to lose more money than that $5,000. Because if I got the opportunity to, just invest into that, I might as well. And I have it, I might as well. Because I know money comes and goes. And that's always been my mindset, is that, at the end of the day, you get presented opportunities. And one thing that was big for me was like me and Will, like we always talk about different like business ventures or different investments. And there was one investment that I couldn't afford at the time because I was just spending money on dumb things. It was those Bored Ape Yacht Clubs.
Oh, yeah.
The NFTs, right? At the time when they came out, I think it was like around $3,000. And I was over here spending money because I was in college and things like that. But it was $3,000. And I was like, why would I buy this in the first place? Because it's new. NFTs were new.
Yeah.
And not only that, it was like, I don't know if this is going to go up. You know what I mean? Because I don't know this market at all. And Will's always telling me, buy it. Next week happens, it's 10,000. I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely can't afford that. Next week after that, 15,000.
That pisses you off because you had an opportunity to get it at 3K.
Exactly. And then, those Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, when they went all the way up, they were around like 300 grand. So after that whole scenario or just situation happened, it made me realize I don't want to be in this position where I can't say yes to opportunity. I needed a way to like be able to be open to opportunities, because you never know which one's really going to hit.
And speaking to what you said about not being willing to lose more money than, let's say, that 5,000, is like people thinking like, well, how did you know you would lose more than the 5,000? I'm even looking at the time, right? Because you mentioned earlier, for 9 hours you made seven grand.
Right.
I would imagine by forfeiting to pay that 5K, you would have invested way more than 9 hours.
Oh yeah.
So therefore, you lose that 9 hours. So that you lost 7K just off of the time spent, right? So I want to just challenge people to look at the time spent as well and throw that time into the opportunity cost as well.
And even that NFT, like, I could have risked $3,000, but really I lost $300,000.
You lost $300,000.
Exactly.
Like that's a crazy. That reminds me of like just again not understanding the market with the Bitcoin. Like I had Bitcoin when that shit was like $360, and I remember buying. I know it was like $700. I bought it for $500. And I remember
it went up a little bit.
Yeah, and I remember looking 6 months later, and I was like negative. Like I had lost like $360 from it. I was like, oh hell no, I'm gonna just take my 200 where I could get it and be. And then we all know where it is now. So it's like
I feel like everybody got presented the opportunity of Bitcoin.
Yo, it was like, and then just fumbled the bag. Just again, not knowing it. But again, when it comes to that time, when you're doing things and you're just always focused on the money, you don't properly vet out the opportunity cost.
Right.
You miss out on a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And so now you're at a point where you're stepping back into a position where you can provide opportunity with the program for remote closers. Like speaking on, focusing on things that we're good at and not everybody is coming into this thing good at sales. Like, talk about the program and what really motivated you into launching it and seeing that need.
Yeah, so the reason why I started Closers List is not only just because it was a program to help people, but I wanted to help people that were exactly like me. They tried all these different business ventures that people talk about online, and not necessarily did it not work out for you, but it was something that you weren't really interested in.
Yeah.
And it was just something because you saw as a get rich quick scheme, right? I wanted to help people that were similar to me. A college student, dropped out, multiple jobs. None of the jobs didn't work out for me, and none of these business ventures really worked out for me like that. They weren't life-changing for me. But I wanted to present something that was life-changing for me to everybody else. Whether you worked a job or not, high-ticket sales in general is basically like a high-paying job. You know what I mean? You don't have to start out with a lot of capital at all. All you need is a phone, you need a laptop, and you need to just be able to talk and listen. And that's the reason why I started it, is just because I wanted to help people that were similar to me. And we have a lot of like older people. We even have younger people in there. We have really like all ages, demographics, and different people inside of our program, just because it's a skill that anybody can learn. Mm-hmm. But it's been a crazy journey, and it's only been like a couple months. But we have over 100 students right now. And you know, some people have day-to-day jobs and they're still doing high ticket sales. There's some people that are still in like high school, college, that still, you know, make time for it because their goals are bigger than what they're doing now.
Yeah, that's big. So what would be the typical results that, you know, somebody coming into the program, you know, could expect to see? And what would the time frame look like? Yeah,
so I always tell people, like, I don't like to give people like time frames or results just because everyone is different in their work ethic, and I don't teach people work ethic. I feel like that's something that can't be taught.
You can't teach people.
So I would say, based off of the students that do show up, that do perform, they're making the money. They're making way more money than I was when I first started. They're making that, you know, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, like $15,000 a month commissions, because they basically invested into who I was and everything that I've learned, which saved them so much time. And they went to a place where, you know what, after learning all this, these are the clients we go for or we should work with. And now they're able to perform without having to go through the obstacles that I went through. So, you know, that comes at the end of the day. Like, there's people that are making more money than their day-to-day jobs. It just depends on your work ethic and your performance.
Yeah. And speaking of like work ethic, I never really had an opportunity to ask you, but when you first got started, like, what did your routine look like on the day-to-day? Like waking up, taking calls, you know, even scheduling your breaks, you know, education. What did that routine look like for you?
It was kind of rough at first. Like during the part-time, like 9 hours a week, it was smooth because it was just like, I got to do anything throughout the weeks. But when I really got serious into the business, I had to realize, like, you know, at the time I was living with my parents, and I was like, you know what? They wanted me to do all these chores. They wanted me to take the dogs out and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't got time for this. Like, I need to focus on my goals, and I need to focus on what's bigger than me. And, you know, at the time, like, I was the only one at home. So I had to do all these different things. So I got to the point where, you know, I was watching dogs, bro, taking sales calls. Like, my schedule was kind of messed up when I really first got serious about it, because there was so much going on at the house. But I still made it happen. But honestly, I would say, like, my goal at the end of the day was just to make a lot of money to get out.
So you was just going ham, just
bro. What? Like, that's why a lot of people, like, I always used to post this on my stories. I would post my closes for the day. I'll post a picture of a dog. Yeah, have you ever seen that the X-ray of the dog inside of you? Yeah. So I would post that every single day, and it was just me taking sales calls, and I would be like, all right, get some rest. We're back at it tomorrow, and go crazy.
Just go crazy. You gotta have that dog in you, y'all.
And then I started to take some time away, like, from doing that so much, and really just focus on, like, okay, we're making all this money, but I need to focus on my health.
Yeah, I'm about to say, 'cause when did you have time to, like, you know, treat yourself, and like, when did you celebrate the small wins and the big wins that you had?
I would say I never really celebrated the small wins, because I just felt like I'm just around so many people that are And I hate to say it, like I hate comparing myself, and like I feel like everybody does, and people say they don't, but they do.
We all do it.
But I'm around people that make $1 million in a month.
Yeah.
100,000 in a month. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, there's no reason to celebrate right now.
Yeah.
And when I celebrated, it was always something like big. Like I got my place, I bought my car, started my business, and it's just like the things that like actually are something that I want and something that's gonna like level me up. Because having my own place, bills.
Yeah.
So I'm really gonna go crazy. The Tesla, another car bill.
Yeah.
Let's just go crazy. So everything that I buy was pushing me to achieve more. But yeah, I would say when everything kind of like, I sorted out everything, it was kind of like work out in the morning, get breakfast, text my leads, take my sales calls, 5 to 6 calls. I'll be finished around like 4 o'clock. After that, I'll just hang out with my friends or talk to, my client and just chill for the rest of the day. Focus on, nothing related to the calls.
Yeah.
And just, focus on my mental.
Yeah.
That's huge in the sales game is like, you're always constantly thinking like, how am I about to close the next person? How am I about to close? But you got to take time away from that. So that way you could be a top performer the next day.
Yeah. I was about to say, what is that like? What does that downtime look like? Because, again, going into it, knowing that, let's say you had a whole day of no's and you got to do the whole thing the next day. Like, how do you decompress? How do you get ready for that? How do you show up to every call fresh? And like the last call didn't even happen.
Yeah, so I would say at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. So you got to understand, like, you're gonna get no's in this game of sales.
Guaranteed.
In general. Like, you're guaranteed that there's not a person that closes 100%. But you got to also realize, like, sometimes you got to just make changes on the offer and the way you speak to people in your calls. But I'll say how I was able to decompress a lot was just like really just watching like a lot of podcasts. I was watching a lot of podcasts. I was going to the gym like very heavy, and just spending time with my family. I think that's the biggest thing is like in this entrepreneurship game, like, we're always constantly busy working on business and business and business that we forget about the things that got us here.
That family, spending time with family.
And family's always gonna have your back throughout everything.
Yeah.
And I believe that like when you spend that time with your family, you start to look around and realize like this is why I'm in this game, like of just entrepreneurship or sales in general. Like I gotta go hard for them because for me, I'm a college dropout. I haven't worked a job in over 5 years, like a real like job. So I have nothing on paper, really. So like, every day is like, it has to work for me. But I'm willing to take that risk because I'm the only one in my whole family, on my dad's side and my mom's side, that's really like an entrepreneur. So I was willing to take that risk, but I also put myself in a position to be around people that made it possible and opened the doors for me.
Surrounding yourself with the right people, man.
You have to.
Yo, Pat, it's been truly an exciting conversation and just eye-opening as well, not just for me, but I'm sure for our audience as well. Before we transition to to the end of the show, I do want to ask you, like, if you could, because we talked about a lot of different mindset hacks and tips when it comes to this sales game.
Right.
If you could line up like your top 3 sales tips, what would those tips look like?
Yeah. The first thing is listen. Listen to your customer and listen to your lead and understand the reasons why they booked the call with you. The second thing is understand your offer to the point where you don't you seem like the coach or the consultant inside of the business. And then 3 is don't stutter throughout your calls, because once you seem like you're hesitant about the offer, the person loses trust on that call in order to buy. So I'll say listen, understand your offer, and I'll say really just don't stutter. Really learn it to the T, and that way you feel confident in what you're selling.
That's big. That third one is big.
Yeah.
Because I've even, like, when I first got onto an offer, I noticed times where you start to just kind of stutter or say,
Yeah, or you don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You just start kind of like just word vomiting. So that's a big tip. And of course, the listening, everything on there is solid tips. I definitely enjoyed you, bro. And kind of piggybacking off what you said, you did mention earlier, like kind of like knowing the offer. And I think you mentioned even like at one point you were a student of an offer. Would you advise that, like, in order for a lot of these new remote closers these days, do they need to, like, how do they know the offer like that? Like, do they need to become the student? Like,
there's two different ways you could do it. So if you've ever bought a program online and you've seen results, you should mention that to the business owner and be like, hey, I've gotten these amazing results. Is there any way I could help you in selling this program? That's one way to get that client. The second way is that you can do outreach and find a client, but the best way that you're gonna understand the offer is taking time to get the course or the product that you're selling and being a student inside of it. So like for me, I didn't understand the offer of Amazon because I never did it. So I took 2 weeks into like my sales game and just things like that to actually try it out. I didn't care about the money. I wanted to understand the business so much to the point where if a customer asked me a question on what I was selling them, I knew every answer. So I did 2 weeks of selling on Amazon. And then I was like, yo, this works. I know the problems that people face inside of this business. And I went through it myself, made sales, and it made me more confident in selling the actual offer itself.
That's good advice. That's big advice. Transitioning to the end of the show. This one, it has nothing. I mean, you could make it related with what we've been talking about, but it's not necessarily related. But you watched The Matrix before?
I watched it before a long
time ago, right? All right. So you would be familiar with like Morpheus and how he presented Neo with that red pill, blue pill.
Okay, no.
It's
been a minute.
All right.
It's been too
So
long.
what I want you to do though, this might be a little tough for you, but if you could give our listeners a situation where they have to pick between the red pill of choosing something, there obviously has to be some type of sacrifice though,
right,
and then the red pill of choosing something else with a different sacrifice. So for example, like let's say, you have the one where it's like you can choose $1 million today,
right,
but you have to work 80 hours a week for the rest of your life.
Right.
On the flip side, you can choose time freedom, but you will never be wealthy.
Okay.
So that's like an example.
All right. Dang, I got to think about this one.
And you can make it sales related too. Like usually that's the easiest, like it's to make it relatable to like your space.
Okay. So this is the easiest way. You could choose to, be compensated on your performance.
Okay.
But you got to sacrifice your salary.
So no salary, but you paid off a performance. Gotcha. That's blue pill.
Or, okay. Dang, I don't know if this one makes sense, but, or you work an amazing career, but you have to clock into an office, or you could work anywhere in the world. And then I don't know.
Gotcha.
Like,
Okay, so I'm gonna help you out here. I like that first one though. I'm gonna actually make that red pill because that's some red pill shit. Right?
Okay.
So the red pill is you said
get compensated for your performance.
Compensated for your performance
rather than getting a
but
salary.
No salary.
Correct.
Got you. Then I'm gonna say the blue pill is you're compensated on a salary but can never take vacation. I like that one. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that one. I already know which one obviously you gonna pick, but I for our audience, like that's a tough one, right? Red pill, blue pill, which one you going with? Of course, we're gonna drop that scenario in the Facebook group. And then also, if you're listening to us on Spotify, you'll have an opportunity to vote there. And shoot, we might as well just throw up a poll on the YouTube community as well. So if y'all watching this on YouTube, go right over to that community tab and vote on that poll. Which one are you choosing? Red pill, which is paid off of your performance,
rather than
sacrificing a salary.
Yep.
And in the blue pill, you paid a salary. Let's say it's a handsome salary, but you sacrifice vacation. That's tough. Which one you going with? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. So, but hey, love Pat, man. It's been a pleasure having you, bro. I want you to, before you get out of here, is give some advice. Let's say you walk out of here and you run into a spin image of 18-year-old Pat. What would be some advice you would give to that young guy?
Damn. I'll say follow your purpose. Never settle, and always chase after what you want rather than what other people want for you.
That's a good one. Follow that purpose is big.
Yeah, huge.
You gotta follow that purpose, because then that goes back into what we said earlier. Like, all your energy comes into following your purpose. Like, if you're not doing that, you are draining yourself every single day. You're draining the life force from your body. So you gotta follow that purpose, because that's your life force. Man. So before we get you out of here, tell our listeners about where they can find you, what you have coming up, and some things that you're really excited about moving forward.
Yeah. You guys can find me on Instagram at Patrick H. Khim. And I do a free class every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, where I show you exactly how to get started in remote high-ticket sales, how to find your client, and start making consistent money with the script that I personally use for all of my sales calls. So every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then you can find me on Instagram at Patrick H. Khim.
Let's get it, man. I'm super excited for y'all, because if you are still tuned in at this point, I don't even see a reason why you won't be on that webinar, on Sunday, because, as a high ticket closer myself, remote sales has given me an opportunity to be able to invest into the podcast, invest into you guys even more, focus even more on my family, double down in my career. And it just gives you that peace of mind. So, like, for those who are working a 9-to-5, you love your 9-to-5, but you still scrounging, you still trying to make ends meet. Like, remote closing seems like the solution for you. So I want to see every single one of y'all tuned in on that webinar Sunday at 8, right?
Yes, sir.
And then also, if you stick around there, I'm sure Pat going to have some special treats and some goodies for y'all to opt in to that closers list program as well.
Correct.
Awesome. Well, let's get it, man. Y'all just tuned into another episode of the $1 Million Mind Podcast. Just remember to keep focused, build momentum, and drive results so you can live abundantly. My name is Kai Speaks, and you just heard it from Patrick Khim on high ticket sales, do's and don'ts. Let's get it.